Breaking right now, Prince Andrew has in the past hour been summoned to appear before congressmen in Washington, D.C. for questioning over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. Let me show you this letter from the Congress of the United States. This, I do point out, is a Democratic committee. And they say, in the interests of justice for the victims, this is a direct letter, by the way, to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Apologies if I've referred to him as a prince, because of course that is wrong, but it's a lifelong habit, which I'm going to have to get out of. In the interest of justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, we request that you cooperate with the committee's investigation by sitting for a transcribed interview with the committee. Now, this is disastrous timing for both Prince William, who we're going to talk about, has made a major address at the COP summit today in Brazil after the Earthshot Prize last night, and Prince Harry, who is desperately trying to steal the attention from his older brother, and, by the way, convince us Brits that he's just the happy-go-lucky veteran, and, you know, he didn't accuse us all of racism for voting for Brexit a couple of years ago, so we will get to all of that. But this has truly been another disastrous day for the Andrew, formerly known as Prince, with the King finally issuing the letters patent which strips him formally of his titles. Watch as the news broke this afternoon.
We begin with breaking news this afternoon. In the past half hour or so, King Charles has formally removed Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's Prince title and his HRH style by issuing what's called a letters patent. Details of that have been published by the Crown Office in the Gazette, saying the King has been pleased by letters patent under the Great Seal of the Realm, dated 3rd of November 2025, to declare that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince.
But meanwhile, Prince Harry, who I think should just be Harry Mountbatten Windsor too, is on a charm offensive for those of us in the United Kingdom. But are we really going to forgive this scumbag who not only accused all of us of racism, but also accused his own family and the institution run by his late grandmother of racism? So here's the headline. Harry says he currently lives in the US, with a comment likely to spark speculation that he doesn't see America as his forever home, as he urges Brits not to forget veterans once the uniform comes off, in what LBC, the left-wing LBC, describes as a passionate Remembrance Day essay. But as the Royal News Network posted in response, says the man who abandoned his family, duty, and country, you can't make this stuff up. So let me just take you through what Prince Harry has actually said via this article by Tom Sykes in The Royalist. He writes, Prince Harry has inadvertently sparked speculation about plans long denied by his team that he one day plans to return to the UK by saying he currently lives in the UK. lives in the US. He recently told a podcaster he had no plans to become a US citizen. He made the new remark not in an off-the-cuff interview, but in a written article distributed on Global Newswires about Remembrance and Veterans Day celebrations, which take place all this week. Harry has provoked suspicions he is trying to take attention off his brother Prince William by travelling to Canada to support such causes today, the same day William presents his Earthshot Awards in Brazil. In the article entitled The Bond, the Banter, the Bravery, What It Means to be British, Harry, who moved to the US 5 years ago, paid special tribute to the wounded Ukrainian servicemen and women he spent time with earlier this year at the Superhumans Rehab Hospital in Kiev. He said, these people reminded me that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the triumph of purpose over it. Then, he said, there is a similar stoic spirit of self-deprecation and humour in Ukrainians that I recognise more than any other in us Brits. Though currently I may live in the United States, Britain is and always will be the country I proudly served and fought for. The banter of the mess, the clubhouse, the pub, the stands, ridiculous as it stands. These are the things that make us British. I make no apology for it. I love it. But as Tom Sykes says, the comment is likely to provoke raised eyebrows at the palace and more vocal criticism online, where Harry is often accused of betraying Britain by attacking its monarchy and overstating his active military service. And Connor Tomlinson, I actually think that's a bit of an understatement, okay? Because what Harry has done, I think, is treacherous. I think it's treasonous. And do you remember a couple of years ago when he was totally ensconced in the US and believed that he would be there forever and that his marriage was perfect and all of that, he was constantly unable to say one positive thing about the United Kingdom. And I will never forget that Netflix documentary where he basically painted the United Kingdom as a racist hellhole because of Brexit, and also criticised the Commonwealth, which was his late grandmother's life work, as being British Empire 2.0. Remember, he dragged all of those hard leftist British haters on. So this 180 to now sort of try and win us back, it's not working for me. Is it working for you?
Well, the Commonwealth is British Empire 2.0, but not in the way that Harry thinks, given the levels of Commonwealth migration we've had in the last few years. But Dan, it's clear that this is another PR exercise because his adventurism in America hasn't got quite as well as his adventurism in Afghanistan. You might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but in Spare, wasn't he complaining that essentially his military service had basically been thankless? So even though people lauded him for being involved in the military, even though people thought that he was a sort of a lad about town for his raunchy escapades in Vegas, even though people turned out and congratulated him for his marriage to Meghan, it seems that he is, well, quite ungrateful for his station, has derelicted his duty representing one of the most historic institutions in Britain, and has thereby contributed to the degradation of people's respect for the institution. I mean, his father hasn't done great either, bending over backwards for Islam, helping the World Economic Forum, being more obsessed with vaccines and climate change than saving his own country from being demographically and culturally swamped. And then you've got, yet again, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who persists under a dark cloud of his at least friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, if not engagement in questionable activities with Mr. Epstein. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he complies with this request by the US congressional body to give a written interview. I think Democrats are pushing for this because they recognize that President Trump has been quite weak and mishandled the issue of Epstein. He's been flippant, trying to dismiss it, and it's probably because he's been frustrated by his team, particularly Pam Bondi's incompetent handling of the Epstein files, promising she's got this mountain of evidence on her desk that has never materialized just so she can get her Fox News clip and generate some traction. So all around, it's not looking good for the royals, and I don't think that Harry's going to be able to recover his damaged public reputation over in Britain.
And here's the letters patent. I mean, it is a bit of a historic moment, Connor, even though it was well signposted, because remember, for a long time there was this idea, well, there's going to have to be a debate in Parliament and stripping the titles just isn't possible. Well, it actually is, which I think sends a shiver down the spine of Prince Harry over there in Montecito, because I think by the end of his life, his brother will seek revenge and he will be Harry Mountbatten Windsor. I really do believe that. But let me just show you, because it is this historic moment. There's the very short update, given the significance of what the king is doing. The king has been pleased by letters patent under the Great Seal of the Realm dated 3rd of November 2025 to declare that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince. And it's gone. Something that the late Queen Elizabeth II always considered his birthright, being known as Prince Andrew, is gone. Which means, in my view, there's no reason why Prince Harry should be Prince Harry, and there's no reason that Meghan Markle should be the Duchess of Sussex, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think that logic's quite sound. The only thing I would say, Dan, is that I don't think he's going to be Harry Mountbatten Windsor. He's probably going to be Harry Markle, given his praise for progressive feminism might cause him to adopt her surname instead.
Now, I'm not sure if you're going to be impressed, Connor, with William's speech today. So he hosted the Earthshot Prize last night, which was a huge success, very star-studded, Kylie Minogue, Shawn Mendes. But of course, you do have the Woketopians there too, the Jacinda Arderns, the Sadiq Khans, the Slippery Starmers. And today, I don't know, verging into political territory at COP, where he was representing his father, by the way, because of the King's deteriorating health. Watch this.
Affecting lives across the UK and across the world, from small towns to major cities, from coastal communities to inland regions. No corner of the globe will be unaffected. These impacts pose risks to growth, security, and well-being in all countries. But we know that these risks often fall hardest on those who contributed least to the crisis. This demands urgent, coordinated action. We must ask ourselves, what legacy do we wish to leave? Because the impact of all our choices will be felt by us all around the world, in the safety of their homes, the stability of their livelihoods, and the health of the natural world that sustains us all.
Now, Connor, given the terrible press that the royal family has had over the past month, William's trip, in my view, has actually been a triumph in Brazil. The imagery was incredible. You know, he was barefoot and, playing the volleyball and all of that. But this speech today, is it risky? You know, given that the whole issue of nut zero, as I call it, is now very much back on the table of British politics. What previously was just like a complete nodding through by the uni party is now a hotly contested issue, with Reform UK leading in the polls, saying hell no. The Tories coming to that point of view against, of course, a surging Green Party. So is it wise? Do you think it's wise for our future king to be involving himself in this zone?
No, but I don't think he can help himself, Dan, because it's been his father's project for many years, and he's taken up the mantle of mental health and climate issues. If you were talking in terms of conservation, your love of the land, England's rolling hills, its beautiful birds and its native species, mainly mammals, of course, not its people, that is a concern, then you would be talking in terms of not carpet bombing the countryside with concrete high rises. And if you were talking about those paying a high price who have not disproportionately contributed to the degradation of our atmosphere, you would be saying, well, Britain only contributes 1% of annual carbon emissions, whereas the Chinese are doing upwards of 30. Most of the polluted rivers in the world are 2 out of Africa and the rest are from Asia. Might be the other way around, actually. And China and India are opening up new coal-fired power plants. Absolutely no repudiation by them breaking their Paris Accord commitments. So what that speech was actually saying about those who contribute the least but bear the greatest burden is another intersectional racial justice dog whistle saying, and of course it's black and indigenous communities who are the most impoverished but who suffer the most from carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide or any other gas that they want to complain about on any given day. And so I think this just falls on deaf ears. Like the climate issue now is a pure luxury belief, not just for the developing third world who don't care about their utopian green projects because they're too poor to not burn coal rather than dung and wood, but also because the rest of us are paying exorbitant taxes and subsidies for renewables that don't work when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. And our energy bills are only escalating so that the political class can jet around the world to places like Brazil and give speeches about how good they feel about themselves. So I think this is yet another example of the royals being just as out of touch as our politicians are. And when the time comes to replace the political class, if the honour of the House of Windsor is in question, then I don't think this speech helped them win back any brownie points.
Connor, I've got to ask you as well about the big royal story on the front page of the Sun newspaper today. Meghan Markle's so desperate, all of her projects since moving to Hollywood haven't worked, that she's going back to acting, making a shock return to acting, playing herself in a movie alongside Lily Collins, Brie Larson, Jack Quaid. I mean, I guess the one thing that we can take from this, Connor, is that Megxit has been a disaster, right? Because this is the one thing she said that she would never do. I remember speaking to sources very close to Meghan when she entered the royal family, and it was like, she never wants to go back to acting. That is done.
Well, she's playing herself down, and she's been, preparing the role for a lifetime, because she's certainly been method acting her way into fakeness. I know all of her co-stars as well are insufferably woke, like Brie Larson, who played Captain Marvel and lectured the fans, and the entire point of that film was that actually the woman was being held down by the man, and the power was inside her all along, and if she just rejected the patriarchy and lent into her emotions, then she would be always as powerful as she was meant to be. She also crushed the fist of a guy who said that she should smile. So yeah, it's just, she's basically a villain. And then there's Jack Quaid, who's the star of The Boys, which is, the entire series has become just political drivel at this point, especially the second season, which just scaremongered about the ever-present threat of Nazis, and is written by Seth Rogen, who is just a repulsive drug addict who's incredibly narcissistic, and justified his car being broken into in LA once for some weird reason. Jack Quaid has not exactly been shy about his contempt for his fellow Americans who voted for Donald Trump. But at least Prince Harry can console himself with the fact that his wife is probably going to do another sex scene that he will watch over and over again and cry about.
Yes, he will. Yes, he absolutely will. He will be in tears about that without any doubt.
Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, has issued a powerful reflection ahead of Remembrance Day, calling on the public to honour not only those who died in service, but also those who returned carrying the weight of war. The Duke, now in his early 40s, looked back on his own military service, declaring that Britain remains the country he is proud to have served and fought for. Having completed 2 frontline deployments in Afghanistan, he spoke of a lasting bond with service members from every part of the United Kingdom, recalling shared hardship, humour, camaraderie, and national pride. In his written message, titled The Bond, the Banter, the Bravery, what it means to be British, Harry emphasised that remembrance is not meant to glorify war, but to acknowledge its cost both in lives lost and lives forever changed. He highlighted that true remembrance must also recognise those who survived conflict, returned home carrying injury or trauma, and those who continue to rebuild their lives away from the battlefield. Earlier this year, during a visit to Ukraine, he met wounded soldiers and civilians at the Superhumans Rehabilitation Centre. There, he observed a resilience that reminded him strongly of the British spirit, self-deprecating, determined and unbroken even in overwhelming adversity. Despite now living in the United States, Harry reaffirmed that his identity, service and loyalty remained tied to Britain, a place he described with deep affection, from the banter of army life to everyday moments shared in pubs, clubhouses and stadiums. He also drew attention to the Invictus Games, where wounded veterans continue to demonstrate courage, unity and purpose long after their uniforms have been put away, serving as a living testament that service does not end when active duty does. As Global Ambassador, the Duke recently wrote to families supported by Scotty's Little Soldiers, a charity for children of fallen British service members. He expressed admiration for the strength of those children, many of whom march at the cenotaph each year wearing yellow and black scarves in tribute to their parents. He stressed that these children march not in grief alone, but with love, pride and legacy, carrying forward the same service their parents once gave, even as they live with the personal cost of loss. Harry underlined that when one person serves, the entire family serves, and when one falls, the impact ripples through a community. Remembrance, he said, should therefore extend beyond symbolism to active responsibility, not sympathy, but respect, support and duty returned. He warned that veterans too often feel forgotten once their service ends, and insisted that national gratitude must be matched by lifelong support, opportunity and dignity. He framed this not as charity, but as reciprocity. What was given in uniform must be honoured in civilian life. With global peace increasingly fragile and more conflicts unfolding worldwide, the Duke argued that remembrance should not be confined to one weekend in November, but sustained through empathy, action, and unity throughout life. He urged the public to personally visit veterans, greet them, thank them, and listen to their stories. Even small gestures, he noted, reaffirm that their sacrifice still matters. Prince Harry closed his message by inviting the world to remember not only those who never returned, but also the survivors who still carry the war in their bodies, minds, and families' visible and invisible service that continues long after the last salute.